We're in Southern California, about an hour and a half east of LA. Today, I'm going to show you the largest residential project we've ever built. This pond and waterfall system has been almost 2 years in the making. Myself and Brian Helfrich from Team Aquascape came out here almost 2 years ago to consult on this project. We did a design and then work got started. Over the next almost 2 years, there's been a lot of back and forth with Brian and I flying out here, doing a lot of the rock work, building waterfalls. And in between that, Matt, the homeowner, and his crew would actually do a lot of finish work so we could go on to the next phase. This has been a multi-step process. This is a humongous project. We're talking 7 figures to build something of this magnitude. What I want to do today is walk you through this incredible pond waterfall system, and then we're actually going to meet Matt and Kim and hear from them about what it's like to live with this paradise. Right off the bat, this pond is massive. We're talking 135 feet long by 80 feet wide at its widest point. Almost 140,000 gallons of water is in this pond, and the deepest part is 8.5 feet deep. Now, the original intention for this pond was not a recreation pond. It was going to be for fire suppression. Here in this area, they get a lot of wildfires. Their house has been close to the fires 3 or 4 times already. So Matt wanted to have something in place where we had enough water to initially start to beat back some of those flames that might be approaching his property. With that in mind, there is an enormous suction grid at the very bottom of this pond where they could draw down every last ounce of water into a pumping system that feeds irrigation, big sprayers throughout the property. There was an existing pond in this spot already. It was clay bottom. Matt went ahead and took that out because it just wasn't functioning for what he wanted. And then he got this idea in his head. Brian and I came out and we talked about all the things that he wanted to accomplish with the fire suppression. And then he was discussing like how to turn his property into a destination spot. Huge family people. They have a lot of family that's close by. He wants to draw them in. He's big with his community, with his church. So he's like, maybe we could do some events here. That's how this whole idea with the recreation pond was born. We laid out areas for structures, for decks cantilevering over. We're talking big boulders. And then of course, way in the distance behind me, you can see that incredibly massive waterfall which spans hundreds of feet up that California hillside. This job was nothing short of difficult. The first thing we did was reshape the excavation that was here and get started with installing liners. There are 3 separate pieces of liner in here which are all seamed together. The biggest piece at this closest end here is 100 feet long. Matt and his crew seamed those 2 liners together, 250 by 100s, installed them, and then I showed up with Brian and we started rocking this thing in. We actually built the rock work inside the pond in 1 week's time. We're talking 400 to 500 tons of rock inside this body of water. If you haven't seen any of that stuff, click the link right here, start at episode 1, and you can see how this entire thing actually came together. We've got circulation jets inside here. There's aeration inside here. We wanted to make sure that water was moving all to one collection point, which is our intake-based skimmer. All the debris that falls in the pond through the suction of this intake, coupled with the circulation of our jets and the aeration, is brought to this one spot here where it can be manually removed with a skimmer. As you can see, this surface of this pond is completely spotless. All that debris winds up over here. Then from there, we're drawing that water down through our aqua blocks into our intake pipes, feeding these massive pumps that run these waterfalls. Right here we've got two enormous 5-horsepower pumps. Matt literally just got these installed. There's going to be a concrete vault that will be built around this whole pump area for a chamber. These pumps are pulling from that intake area, then they're feeding up through these two large sections of pipe all the way up to the top of our waterfalls, where we've got two constructed wetland filters. Matt completed this deck, cantilevering out over the pond. Just a perfect element when you've got a body of water this size. Right now I'm about 18 inches over the pond. It's straight down to 8 feet in some sections. I've got fish swimming up to me. It's such an interactive feel. He actually cut some boulders into the deck itself, which gives it a really cool look, as well as a place to sit. Coupling that with surrounding it with these gigantic boulders, we've got this lush foliage of some iris here, beautiful lilies all throughout the pond. You can really take in a lot of the pond from this spot. Got some lounge chairs over here. Actually, Matt and Kim said most nights they come out here, sit in these chairs, and they end up falling asleep out here to the sound of that beautiful waterfall. When you invest in a project of this scale, you've got to have lots of structures around. That's where this pavilion comes in. Matt and his uncle actually built this pavilion. We've got a really nice stone patio. And then we've got this section here that comes right up to the edge of the pond. Matt and his guys actually built these stone walls inside the liner. That water's lapping right up against the edge of these rocks. We're 4 feet of water right here, and I can see where it drops down to the 8.5-foot section. This is where they do a lot of their fish feeding. Spend a lot of time out here at the couches. Really just a great spot to take in the entire scale of this project. You can sit here and have a conversation and really just enjoy the visual of those big, beautiful cascading falls off in the distance. Matt has done quite a bit of landscaping already. He's bringing in some grass areas, stepping stones, beautiful lush plantings all around the edge of the pond. The last time I saw this pond was about 6 months ago, and it looks completely different already. I can't imagine what another year is going to do to this place. Off in the distance, we've got that far shoreline which meets up with the natural landscape. It's doing exactly what we thought it was going to do, which all that stuff is growing down right to the edge of the rock, kind of blurring that line between aquatic and terrestrial. I absolutely love that look. And then you've got all those beautiful lilies, which are all blooming right now. They look gorgeous right up against that natural landscape. He's got some plans for lighting, which is going to highlight some of these trees that are on the outside edges, kind of giving you that really intimate feel. Being able to make full use of the property which surrounds the pond was crucial. This little walkway here, which leads you up to the waterfall, of course you're going to want to go get up close to these huge boulders with that water cascading. But now you've got lots of entry points into the pond. We've got shallow areas over here which are only 18 inches to 2 feet deep, and then it steps down to 3 foot, 4 foot incrementally before you get to that deep spot. In reality, when you're hanging out, especially in a rec pond, you're going to be in those shallow areas, maybe the 3 foot, 4 foot section, having conversations, kind of relaxing, sitting on a rock. And that's why it's so crucial when you're designing something like this to create those spots where it's actually a usable body of water. And of course, this is the centerpiece. You've got this gigantic set of waterfalls, which you can't take in from one spot. You really have to traverse this entire landscape to see every inch of this. And that was kind of the thinking behind it. Matt wants it so when his grandkids are here, or he's got visitors, they actually go exploring the property. He's got 30 acres here, and this is a big part of what he wanted to accomplish with this landscape. We've got some rocks here that are upwards of 15 and 20,000 pounds. Those are big rocks. Real big rocks. This frame rock that I'm standing next to right here was actually the first rock that went in for the waterfall. It goes down into the water another 2 feet, so you can just imagine just how big this rock is. This rock is every bit of 6 or 7 tons by itself, and then you start flanking it with all these huge boulders. I know that that rock there was close to 15 tons. I'm talking 15 tons for one rock, and then we've got multiple pieces that are just like that. When Brian and I started designing this waterfall, we really wanted to take inspiration from the surrounding landscapes here in Southern California. We're very close to Forest Falls. We hiked up in there, took a look at what some of those waterfalls look like, and we're like, okay, we got to really try to replicate what's here, because it wouldn't make sense to try bringing an East Coast waterfall into California. And if you go hiking in the region here in San Bernardino Mountains or any of the surrounding mountains, you're going to find waterfalls that look just like this. And that's where we got our inspiration. I'm walking all over this, and that was really the intention. Using these large rocks, you're able to walk anywhere you want within this waterfall, and nothing's going to be jarred loose. This is actually one of my favorite sets of cascades that we built. I love having it where we've got one main rock, and then we've got ancillary rocks that are kind of bouncing water out around them. This one here, where it falls onto the side, slopes off and shoots in front of that waterfall. That's something we do quite often. And we've got deep pooling areas. We're talking 8, 12 inches of water, which this is falling into. And that's crucial too for sound, creating that bass tone where it's not all just crashing water on top of rocks. We're mixing those two sounds where it gives it a really nice effect. When you've got a hillside this massive, you've got to spread things out. And that's where all these outcroppings come in. Not only are they beautiful, but they're functional. They're retaining a lot of that dirt that's on the hillside. So we've got these massive 8, 10 ton rocks that are flanking outside of it, bringing that waterfall out, having it make sense and look like a natural water feature. And this is where Matt and his guys really did a fantastic job. They brought in these staircases, patio spots, tying everything in together. Brian and I were saying we could picture people getting engaged in this spot, kneeling down, taking the ring, and there's that waterfall in the backdrop. What a great scene that is. Matt's guys built this wall up against this pool. Now we're up close and personal with this focal point water feature. It's going to be hard to tell on camera, but that rock is over 7 feet tall. It's massive. It goes down a couple feet, flanked by that one. So we took those two guys, pinched them together, and created this waterfall here, using the natural slope of this rock, shooting that water off. It helps having 40,000 gallons an hour that we can push through this, giving us that effect. Then we've got an 18-inch deep pool, which then shallows out and starts going down, creating that absolutely gorgeous view. As you're walking through all of this created landscape, you get to appreciate the size of some of these boulders, what Matt and Kim have done with the landscaping. It's all just starting to come together to just one big, beautiful garden. The elevation change from the pond all the way up to the top is almost 30 feet. So it was necessary to build quite a few retaining walls, and using these large boulders, I don't know how you would come up with a better effect. I love it when you've got big rocks in the landscape. It gives us such a cool feel. We repurposed some of these timbers that Matt had laying around to create this bridge. There is a pathway that continues on up the hillside, which he uses with his side-by-side. We wanted something you could actually drive a vehicle across. We had an excavator on this with no problem. So that's really just I love having bridges, and especially something with old wood like this that you can incorporate. Just a great effect. And of course, standing up top here, you get to take in that vista. Just so many great spots to be on this property, especially with this water feature. We've got a ginormous boulder, which is framing out this rapid style waterfall. We've got really small openings here where we're pushing lots and lots of water through, creating that thick water. At the top of this falls is our first constructed wetland filter. Now you're probably saying, Jack, what filter? That's kind of the point. This just looks like it's the pooling area of the stream section. In actuality, this is a 15 by 15 constructed wetland filter. At the far side, we've got caps, which actually are snorkel units, They go down to the bottom of this 4-foot deep filter for cleaning. Every year you can actually pop these lids off, drop a clean out pump in there and flush this filter down. We're coming up through centipede modules, then aqua blocks, then we've got layers of rock and gravel before it reaches the top of what you see now. Then we dress it out with all this boulder work, making it look like a continuation of our stream system going down the hillside. We could not fit the size filter we needed in one spot for this big pond. So we had to split them up, and that's where it became necessary to build that 15 by 15 there. Then we've got the big guy up at the very top here. This is about a 20 by 25 constructed wetland filter, built the same as the 15 by 15, it's just much larger. We split the pumps to feed the gallons per hour we need for each section of this filter. Then we're using that water we have left over for this very top water, which is our origination point, looking like a spring just coming out of the ground, starting this entire system. I love the way this one turned out. We've got 18 inches of water up here on top of our actual filter. The kids use this quite a bit. We've got big boulders where they're climbing all around. We've got stuff that comes down into the water, just giving it a really natural feel. And then you've got this beautiful Boulder waterfall, which starts the whole thing. The rocks that are up in here are huge. We're talking like 8 tons, 10 tons, 12 tons each rock. This job used probably upwards of 2,000 tons of boulders to create. And what made it so challenging was getting every single one of these rocks all the way up Matt's winding driveway to bring here so we could use to create this water feature. I love getting the opportunity to come back here and visit this pond. Now I want to go talk to Matt and Kim and see what their life is like living with this paradise.